Hey Facebook, I wanted to do a lesson on works and faith and grace and righteousness. And this is not going to be a one video lesson that I intend on posting. This is probably going to cover a number of videos. But I wanted to do at least an introduction to what the overall scope of it should mean for us. And in Romans, the second chapter, Paul deals with the subject of righteousness and faith and grace and law and several different types of law in the book of Romans. There's not just one law. There's many people look at the law of Moses and say, oh, well, that's the law that Paul was always talking about in the book of Romans, and it wasn't. There are several different laws that Paul referred to in Romans, but I wanted to bring into light some things concerning the Gentile aspect of the church, which if you're not a Jew, you're a Gentile. It doesn't matter if you're Arabian, it doesn't matter if you're Russian or full-blood Hispanic, it doesn't matter. Everyone that is not Hebrew or Jewish is a Gentile. A Gentile is anyone who is not Jewish. And I want to read in Romans, the second chapter, verse number 14, "For when Gentiles who do not have the law by nature do the things in the law, these, although not having the law, are a law to themselves, who show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and between themselves their thoughts accusing or else excusing them, in the day when God will judge the secrets of men by Jesus Christ according to my gospel." And I want to skip down to verse number 25. "For circumcision is indeed profitable if you keep the law. But if you are a breaker of the law, your circumcision has become uncircumcision. Therefore, if an uncircumcised man keeps the righteous requirements of the law, will not his uncircumcision be counted as circumcision? And will not the physically uncircumcised, if he fulfills the law, judge you who, even with your written code and circumcision, are a transgressor of the law?" What Paul is really laying down here is some pretty harsh words for Jewish people who are they're Christians, but they're commanding people that are not Jewish to be circumcised and to live by the law. And Paul is saying, you know what? These people were not born into a Jewish family. These people were not circumcised on the 8th day like the law commands. These people were never raised in a synagogue or the temple area. They weren't raised at the feet of rabbis and teachers and Pharisees and Sadducees. These people weren't raised at the feet of Judaism and the teachings of Judaism. These people are Gentiles who never once heard, "Thou shalt not kill." If you trace over Romans, the second chapter, Paul starts to deal with the very basic 10 commandments and how people fall short at those things. And he's saying that these Gentiles basically never heard, "Thou shalt not kill." They never heard, "You should not covet. You should not commit murder." They never were taught these things as the law as they were growing up. But it's ironic that there's many Gentiles, according to Paul, that are keeping the requirements of the law. There's plenty of Gentiles out there not killing. There's plenty of Gentiles out there not coveting. There's a lot of Gentiles out there that's not doing this and not doing that. But does that mean they're saved? No. Because God has concluded, both Jews and Gentiles, that they are all under sin. So what do we have to compare this to for us in the 21st century? Basically, we have the established elite of the religious facility that are saying, okay, well, we've got this going for us. We've got this truth. We've got this word. We've got this law. We've got this command. And you over here who are lost are not doing it just like us. What do you have? You've got a couple of verses of scripture that you twist and take it to mean whatever you want it to mean. But what do you really have outside of that? And the point that Paul is making is, don't start boasting against these people because they don't have what you feel is the truth that you have. Because even though they were never taught by Moses himself, "Thou shalt not kill," guess what? They're not out killing. Even though they never got to hear Rabbi Ben Judah, whoever in the days of Christ, or Gamaliel, that's teaching people the requirements of the law and good deeds and how they can earn their way to heaven. And even though they were never taught these things, it's ironic that even though they never sat in the best schools of Judaism as a child, or were bar mitzvahed or bat mitzvahed, it's amazing that a lot of these people are still doing the same things that you said. And he chalks it up to something that's really amazing to me in Romans chapter 2. Paul says that it is the work of their conscience. It says, who show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness. In other words, their conscience is should be soothed by many people's standards, because even though they've never heard this before, even though they never heard the law, they're still obeying it. And so even though they are not circumcised according to the way that you feel like they should, it's interesting that what they're doing is the same thing that you're doing. And he goes on to say, not that, and I do not believe that this is Paul calling us spiritual Jews, but he goes on in Romans 2:29 and says, but he is a Jew who is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart, in the spirit, not in the letter, whose praise is not from men, but from God. In other words, these Gentiles are getting it more right than you are. Why? Because even though you're boasting about the things that you have and the things that you think you're able to do, it's interesting that these same Gentiles are living by that same code of ethic and that same moral code and that same lifestyle that you've been living. Only the difference is it's been enforced on you. It's been beat down your throat by people that lord over you. It's been constantly berated over you time and time and again, the things that you can do and the things that you can't do. But these Gentiles were never beat down. These Gentiles were never sat down on a pew and taught, hey, you don't do this, you do this, you do this, you don't do that. They were never sat down and taught the ethical code, but he said that their heart has the law written in it. It's not being enforced on them. It's something that they automatically do out of the sake of conscience. That's where I want to start this series, is talking about the difference between the Old Covenant and the New Covenant. The Old Covenant is definitely works-based. There are so many things that they would have to do to try to ease their conscience and show that they have a walk with God. But we'll see later on in the video series how the things that are written in the law, and that includes everything that is written in the law. I mean, Paul didn't make any dissimulation here. He said, if it's in the law, I've got some news for you in the book of Romans. It's written in the law, but we're not under the law. So here we go. We are going to take this little trip together, and I hope that you enjoy this video series. I do appreciate the feedback. On a personal note, on my previous video about my remarks about the UPC, I do not take those back. I am sorry if some have been offended by them, but I believe that this video series will also help many people if they would open up their heart and their mind to receive with meekness the engrafted word, which is able to save our souls. I look forward to this video series. I look forward to your feedback. May the hand of God be upon you and lead you and guide you into all truth.